Phasewheel in brief.
Hi, welcome to the Phasewheel in brief. I'm Kiley Hylton, and I'm joined by Caitlin Morin today. Hey, Caitlin.
Hi, good to see you. How's it going? Good morning.
Good morning. It's going well. How about you?
Good. This is our first morning recording. Very stoked.
Are you ready to get into today's episode?
I am. So today I think we're going to do the reverse, and I'm going to ask you questions because the questions we have are organizational questions. And Kiley has worked in the marketing agency space longer than I have. To be fair, we both work in the same agency. We both have agency history, but she's much better with client relationships and managing an agency, where I was a consultant for a long time. So I think it makes more sense for her to answer these questions because they're kind of about how to implement GEO throughout your organization, how to keep everyone on the same page. So is that okay with you, Kai? Are you ready to get started?
I've never wanted to talk about anything more.
Love this for us. Okay, so the first question I have for you is how you make sure the whole company is on the same page as far as GEO. A lot of times, or AI, SEO, whatever, which is a good point we should talk about, whatever you want to call it. How do you make sure that the information coming through is accurate, and why is it important?
So communication is key. This is something that I could talk about for hours upon hours. If the internal communication isn't there, then you're going to have different teams be talking about the company in different ways, which can then translate into AI as either a confusing message or it doesn't hit what your brand is about or your offerings as accurate as possible because it's seeing all these different sources. Mm-hmm. So you actually kind of started down a great example when we were looking at, our Phasewheel. When I say our, I mean Phasewheel's website, and how we wanted to speak about the brand, our own brand guidelines. If you are a company and you don't have brand guidelines, or everyone in your company doesn't have access to the brand guidelines, I would say stop what you're doing right now and make sure you either get that or you make sure it's accessible to everyone who may be putting out content outwardly. But when we were looking at ours, we made a conscious effort to say, hey, we are doing generative engine optimization. We are a GEO company. So we can speak to AI, SEO, and AEO, but when we're speaking about ourselves, it's always centered around GEO. Mm-hmm. So there isn't confusion around that.
Can you dive in a little bit about why that confusion is bad for LLMs, AI tools in general, and how they kind of use that information?
Yeah. So if you think about how, and I would say this can be about agencies or brands themselves. So you have, let's say, sales, you have marketing, you have a customer success or client support team, and you could even have, internal ops and maybe even like a board relationship or PR company. Sometimes marketing and PR are in the same thing, sometimes they're not. So you can have multiple departments and they are focusing in on their area. So sales is obviously trying to make that sale. Mm-hmm. And they have materials out there, whether it's case studies or pitch decks. They may be posting on social, talking to the social team, hey, we need to announce this. It's a cool new feature. You also have product development too. Mm-hmm. Which hopefully product development and sales and marketing are all speaking, but sometimes there could be lines crossed. And then you have marketing. So while they are there to support sales, they may also be wanting to go after one area because that's on their content calendar, or they're wanting to look to update the brand guidelines. So they're really focusing in on that. And that might not have been shared yet. So think social posts, even the website, how that's coming across. Then you can have customer support. So they're saying something, they're creating these help articles for the website, and that might be saying things in a slightly different way too. So you just have a lot of materials that have the potential to be out there that the LLMs have access to and can crawl. You could also have old materials out there that might not be part of your site's navigation, but you never 301 redirected them, or you never removed them from your sitemap. So they're still getting crawled by the LLMs, which is causing either confusion amongst the LLMs because they're bringing in all this data and information and saying, oh, well, this says this says this. They're not quite the same. So they might be averaging that information, or they're describing you in a way that's not 100% accurate because it's from maybe an old source. So maybe you have some sort of old leadership team still active somewhere. And so it's still describing Bob as position X when Bob hasn't been with the company for 5 years.
That's confusing. Yeah, I'm about to sneeze. That's why my face looks like this. Sorry, guys. And so I think the gist here is that LLMs I hope it's not stuck in my face. It probably is. LLMs take all the information that's out there and turn it into one summary, which means that if it's out there inaccurate or old, it's giving them a weird summary of what's going on, right? Which is
I would even say we've seen this with a couple of clients where they've gone through some rebranding. They're either adding to their name or maybe even removing part of their name, and their LLMs are still surfacing that previous name.
Right. Or it hallucinates. We have an auto client who we recently saw hallucination where it was saying a card doesn't exist. That it thought it did exist. So if you leave gaps and don't give as much info as you can, it's going to hallucinate and fill things in with things that aren't completely accurate.
Exactly.
Going back to the team dynamics, how would you're a director, I know that we're a special agency, this is what we do, but if you were a director at a different company, how would you make sure that everyone's on the same page without slowing the team down, without causing issues? What would be the way that you would do that?
Yeah, so I think it's important to know it can't be on one person, but you have to have one person leading the charge. So I hope that makes sense. We actually have a blog about creating a tiger team. So if you want to head over to phasewheel.com and go to our blogs, you can read more about it there. But creating a tiger team is the easier way. But basically, create a team that can spend a day. So whether that's going offsite, if it needs to be online because you're remote, but clear the calendars, make it ahead of time, have an agenda that's really clear. And if people need to do pre-work, I will also say in a previous life, I loved looking at people's different communication styles. There are people who can just come, think on the spot, say what they want to do. There's others who, unless they feel very prepared, they might not speak. And it's not that they don't have the ideas. That's their communication style. So allow everyone to feel prepared coming into this brainstorm, whatever it is. Map out clear outcomes. So if you don't have brain guidelines, say by the end of this day, we're going to have brain guidelines. If it's, hey, we have brain guidelines, we want to review them, update them, and then share them out. Just have a clear goal or goals. And also along with that, have clear timelines. So not everything would be able to be accomplished in that day. So maybe you have a few takeaways. If there's takeaways, 1, assign people to it, and then 2, timelines on when it's due. So it's easy to get caught up in your day-to-day work. And this might seem like an extracurricular for some people, but so it would be easy to push off, but really setting those parameters would help get that. It doesn't have to be a 6-month project. It also depends on how internally organized the company is. Yes, Caitlin.
Just a small question. You keep saying tiger team, and I keep nodding my head. But as a non-corporate girly, whose last corporate job was when we worked in an agency together, what is a tiger team?
So a tiger team is a group of people who are ready to attack a problem, essentially. So this doesn't mean it's one department. I would actually recommend your team be from various departments. So the tiger team could be led by the CMO, for example, ultimately responsible for all this, which does make sense. And then you have someone from product development, from sales, from customer support or success. And you're bringing all those people together with different viewpoints to solve a problem, or even, this is going to sound very aggressive, but attack an opportunity. Something doesn't have to be wrong. for you to have a tiger team. So.
And then going back to that point, thank you for defining that, by the way. Sorry.
Yeah, no problem.
You said it so many times. I was just like, yes, yes. And then I was like, I don't know what that is. That makes a lot of sense. Like a special little ops team. Love that. And also kind of what we did at Phasewheel, right? We brought people in from other departments, which is perfect because you are so good at organizational stuff. And then we have Misty, who's great at like new business, and Brady's great at operations. So we got a cute little tiger team going on. But let's say we weren't Phasewheel, we're a different company. How would you, I know that sometimes we get brought in sometimes too to do audits. If you want to do a quick little internal audit without bringing an external team to kind of see if you're a candidate or see where you're at, how would you approach that without becoming a huge project?
Yeah, so going back, this could be great pre-work before your all-day session, or even just assign people. So if you have interns this summer, this would be a great project for them. Have them go into different LLMs. I would say incognito. If you're on, maybe you're signed in through your company's profile, it's not going to be the same, but and that's a great point too. Not every company needs to do this. So just want to put that out there, but have a couple people go to different LLMs and start asking about your company. See how you're being described. Does ChatGPT describe you the same way as Claude, as Perplexity? Are you being described in the way you want? Are competitors showing up as well? Does it seem like they're being described in a way you wish you were being described? So really being able to just actually go into the LLMs and see how they're describing you is the best way to start. And it would take you less than 30 minutes probably to do 5 or 6 LLMs.
And how would you know, like, what would pass fail look like in the audit?
I actually want to flip that. Okay. As a perfectionist who loves pass fail, it's more about leaning into that gray. So are they getting your company name right? Yes. Okay. That's a pass fail. Yes, they got it right. No, they didn't. It's really the description and even service offerings or product offerings. It might not necessarily that they're describing something wrong, but maybe they're not describing it in the way you thought it should be described. Okay. Or you hoped it would be described. So I think, especially for e-com clients, we know the LLMs love product feeds. Maybe you just don't have enough information in your product feed, in your descriptions. And so you need to go add that. I think that's a great way to start too, if for the e-com side of things.
Yeah, let's double click. Who am I? Let's double click on that for a second. What would separate like an e-com? If you had an e-com company, would you audit it differently than a service-based company, for example, or like a multi-location retail company or something?
Not in the beginning. Okay. Just know you may need to do further because you might have, 100 or even thousands of products. So you may actually want to hone in on those products to look at how they're being described versus just your brand as a whole.
This makes sense. I don't know if I had any. I think the last question is, if the audit doesn't come back as accurately as you hoped, not if you failed, what is the first thing that what's the first step that you would take besides hiring Phasewheel? Obviously, please hire us.
Yeah, so hiring Phasewheel. Second step would be gather anything that's external and plug it in to LLM of your choice and ask it to start looking for those gaps and understand potentially where that disconnect is coming from. You can also do this yourself. It's just going to take so much longer. So feed it the sales material, feed it your social posts, feed it, bring in your website, any sort of support material. So that way it has the chance to audit your internal material, even though your website and social posts are external, but you get what I'm saying on that.
So it'd be like any kind of branding material you would feed into an LLM. Yeah.
Anything that is out on the internet, I would say, in a way.
This makes sense. Okay, I think that was it. Okay, awesome. Is there anything else that you wanted to add? I know this is your level of expertise. I know that this is like your bread and butter is getting organizational things in order. I said today, I wish we could clone you because you're so good at that. Yeah, any final thoughts we can leave people with?
No, just communication is key. So if you think everyone is on the same page, just double check that, don't assume that, and have that open line of communication within your company, agency, brand, whatever, wherever you're at.
Yeah, and I would just say, we forgot to mention this, but like give it a second. If you're going to be making changes to LLMs, making changes in your content, give it like a few weeks to catch up because it will cache old content. Awesome. Well, thanks, guys. We're looking forward to chatting with you next week, and thanks for being here.
Yeah, of course. Hope everyone has a fabulous day. Bye.
Phasewheel in brief.